Hey, good afternoon. This is David Lawrence, Interim Superintendent of Dayton Public Schools, and welcome to our second podcast, DPS The Next Level. The subject for today is internal and external customer service. A C, not one of my 5 C's, but a very important C. We have 2 new guests today. We have a couple people who are out traveling, and I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves today, the new guests and our OGs, the people who are with us every week.
I'm Dan Henshaw, the principal of Mound Street and Dayton Digital Academy.
And Erin Dooley, Chief of Secondary Schools.
Akeisha Sheehy, Chief Academic Officer.
Sharon Goins, Director of Equity.
LaDawn Mims, Principal at Cleveland Elementary School.
Lisa Miner, Associate Superintendent.
So, I'm just going to start with a very basic question. What is internal customer service, or what should it look like as it relates to how we function in this organization amongst each other?
Should probably be responsive. Is the first thought that comes to mind.
Tell me more. When you say responsive, by phone, by email?
Greetings, take care, it should be responsive. We're in the human business. We're in the business of kids in school. And adults, sometimes we forget that, I don't know. I just think we should be responsive. And if we don't know, find out. We sometimes, nobody knows anything. I've ran into that. Nobody knows anything. If you don't know, you should know and go find out.
And when you say nobody, I think you're talking about where we're working right now, correct?
Yes.
That would be central office. So you call to get information.
Yes.
That person doesn't know. Then they refer you to someone else who doesn't know. And then after that, you quit, right?
Typically.
You just
Not
say,
me,
forget.
but
Right,
I could
right.
see where someone else would.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sharon. I like that answer, responsiveness. I think about in our organization, because the work can be stressful, and some of our end users, we don't know what they're going through, and it's so important that we're intentional on providing them excellent customer service so that they can better serve our children that we're all here for. Whatever it takes, answering the phone, returning phone calls, all of those things, maybe standard procedures so that everyone in the organization knows this is our protocol, and that if I do call a department, I'll get an answer or a response at least within 24 hours. And if I don't know, find out. There's some people in the organization that are excellent, and others, I think we need a refresher, or we need to outline the expectations clearly so it's consistent.
I agree. The service should be respectful as well. But you touched on something. You never know what somebody's going through. And you have to have empathy. So I think for us at the table, being role models of that, it starts at the top, the leadership. And I think we should have training to support people, because we can't just assume people know what's expected of them.
I promise I'm going to return your text, Ms. Sheehy. Tomorrow.
I think one other point is that the only reason that central office exists is to support what happens in the buildings.
Powerful.
And to support principals and support teachers. And so when you have a frustrated principal or a frustrated teacher who's calling because they need an answer right now, and the phones roll over, or the answer is I don't know, we're not helping that principal move that building forward.
I'd like to add to that. I think when I look at customer service in the realm of the school building, it's doing whatever it takes to serve our constituents. And, for us, it's the students, it's the parents, it's the greater community. But doing that and offering a smile while you do it and being pleasant, because it's one thing to get the job done, but it's another thing to do the job and be pleasant while you do it. so that people understand that you enjoy your job and that it's not a chore. And oftentimes you can call to different organizations, different groups, different departments, and it's almost like it's a hassle. I think it's important to serve the constituents in a manner that says you like your job.
Ms. Goins, you've had an opportunity to train on the academic and operations side. I spent a year at Jackson Center. In fact, I'm still there, so I have an office there. Do you see a difference in the culture or the ethos as relates to customer service between Jackson Center, which is an extension of central office, which is connected to operations, and then here, the academic base?
To be honest, operations is as a former principal, operations has always been amazing to me. However, I think with your return, and I'm not just saying this, I think with your return, you've kind of elevated their position in the district, their value in the district, and they're happy and proud and they feel seen, heard. So I think they're able to support buildings and other spaces in a different way because they're respected. They didn't always get the respect they should have. And we were, honestly, I say this all the time, us doing the equity training with operations was the most amazing group that we've trained with. They were authentic, they were honest, they want to do a good job, but they were not always seen with the respect they deserve. They work hard, and they just didn't get the respect. They're not dressed in professional outfits all the time. They may have on work clothes. And I just think, for whatever reason, they weren't treated with the respect that I think you have elevated their status. What do we call Rick? The legend, and Lenny, and Tiffany, right. And Big Rob. They're amazing. Right. I mean, they're good people. They work hard. But I just think that's the case.
So is that an issue? Is there a value and equity issue? Do you think sometimes there may be departments that are not as warm and fuzzy because they don't feel valued?
If I may, I think that is probably what you're saying is absolutely correct. Just because you have skilled trades, you have food service. Sometimes they don't get that thank you from the principal, from the staff, from the students, so they don't feel that. So I think that's a very key element is to actually give grace when things aren't returned right away. I think it's important to understand that everybody's working hard. You may not see what they're doing. However, they're really trying to make sure that the students have exactly what they need to be successful. And if we understand that and can, like I say, give them some grace and what you said earlier about empathy, and realize what each and every person is going through, because we don't know what anybody at this table is going through in their home life. But we're here to help the students. We're here to help each other grow and become better.
I cannot leave out the bus drivers. Done some training with them. They're amazing, too. They may have one of the hardest jobs in the district. They're up before any of us. Well, maybe not Dr. Lawrence, but me, certainly. They're up before me. And they have to bring our kids to school, make stops, sit down, behave, be nice to each other. And again, I don't think they have always gotten the respect they deserve. But I think with your arrival, arrival, mm-hmm. I think you've elevated, and it demonstrated by the attendance. First day, no uncovered routes, which I don't never remember hearing that. Do we? Maybe 1 or 2 days a year. But, and so there's a different energy over there. The building that you're establishing, that says that they're valued, that there's somewhere nice for them to go. Nobody sees where they have to go every day on their break. Mm-hmm. But I just think we're kind of shifting or pivoting with how folks are treated and valued. And I think it trickles down and translates into customer service. But I hear you with the equity issue.
It is an equity issue. I spent some time, I'm there frequently, but spent some time today sitting down. This is a shout out to Dispatch, Kim, Monique, and Sharice. And we spent some time just talking. I was there for about 25, 30 minutes. And you're absolutely right. The normalization of the relationship. I mean, if the superintendent would just spend half an hour talking to Dispatch, and by the way, they told on everybody.
You're not supposed to tell.
Ladies, y'all told everybody. And it's okay. but yeah, that new transportation center, yeah, it's an equity and class issue. I'm glad you all broke that up, because this is a massive organization of 2,300 plus people.
And race.
And class. Yeah. Class, equity, and race, for sure. I think 85 to 90% of the drivers are black, and mostly women. So yeah, we treat people in this organization sometimes accordingly to how we view them through our lived experience on the continuum of class, race, and equity.
I think too, there's I think it's called Gemba, which is a Japanese style of management, where they have their upper levels of management who literally walk the factory floors. Instead of relying on messages and this is the version of what's happening, getting out and seeing it for yourself not only helps better understand what people are doing, maybe what they're not doing, what their concerns are, what their frustrations are, and that is internal customer service. If we know that by being in a school building or by being in the nutrition services and the kitchens that, people are having repeated frustrations over and over and over again, then it's incumbent upon us to correct those working conditions or do what we can. Maybe we can't fix everything, but do what we can to create a better workspace for people so that everybody's serving kids better.
That's a wonderful point you just made. I am sure of this. I can say this with certainty. In this building where we work, there are individuals, large numbers of them probably, I think, who go entire school years and do not set foot in schools where kids are. And they're not around the people who get the checks. And so these people are like, they're not people anymore, And so, when somebody doesn't get a check, that's a mortgage, gas, food, Similac. It's a serious issue. It's not just they didn't get a check.
Right.
Yeah, that's a serious point. And I think about, do we have a district that is a culture of care? And culture is one of our big C's, big 5 C's, which I love. Culture and care, and are we really committed to improving this internal customer service? It's so important not only that we respond and walk in their shoes, or at least take the time to go and see face to face. Some things aren't an email. It's not appropriate. Some things aren't even a phone call. It's, I'm going to see this person at the building, in their environment, to hear them so they can see that they're important. I think how we communicate to people is so important, because, and if we want a high-performing district, we have to consider what brain research says, that if I'm fearful or if I feel threatened, I'm not my best, even as an adult. My brain shuts down, I make mistakes. So if we want high performance at all levels, and we value all levels, then we have to be mindful of how we treat others and how we talk to each other.
Yes. I would like to say, just thinking about what you said, we had a situation this week where we did care. We showed that we cared. We showed up for people, and there were a lot of people here that took the time to show up for other people. And I think the individuals that we showed up for really appreciated it. And you saying that just made me think about that, how important that is. And being on the other side of that, when you don't have someone to show up, I've been on that side too. So it is really important that we commit to that. It's not just a word. Mm-hmm. It's real.
We had a relatively new teacher who reached out to get some instructional feedback. And I could easily say, I'm not in the building anymore. But
call Lakeisha about that.
No, but but of course I'm gonna go. over there and give. I mean, we're the same content. There was another incident, and I mentioned it to Aaron. I mentioned it to some other folks, and this young person said, I just felt so supported and people came and checked on me. I mean, how we show up for these young people, and older people too, or anybody who's having a challenge, how we show up for them. I mean, just our compassion has to, at most times, sift through whatever we may personally feel about situations, but it's how we show up. And it also reflects how we show up probably for kids.
That's about, ooh.
Powerful.
LaDon, you were going to go. You go, and then we'll come back to what she said.
Well, when I continuously think about customer service, it really does encompass the 5 C's. When you're hitting all of those marks, it makes you feel more of a team. No matter what department you work in, no matter if you're central office or building-based, or someone that touches multiple buildings, you are a part of a team, and we are all doing it collectively for the benefit of the children. And so when we're all operating at such a high level of customer service, that's where the DPS team comes about, and we hit all those 5 C's.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ms. Goins, about equity issue and how we treat kids. If we have customer service and we don't do it amongst ourselves, it certainly can't translate that to kids. Maybe you can talk about your experience in the summertime with those little kids called Liddy.
Our Liddy program, we are really intentional about the teachers we selected. Our SROs are engaged. They're part of Liddy. The young ladies in the cafeteria, everybody's a part of Liddy. Everybody says a pledge with us and the kids every morning. We're greeting parents. If they're late, hey, no worries. I mean, it's summer, it's light. We're not yelling. When we send invites to parents, you have been selected. You're important. You're valued. And the parents, in turn, we get qualitative data from the parents in the survey, and they just appreciate what we do for them. And as an educator, nobody's ever just in mass said, "I appreciate what you do for my kid." This should be school, and that's what the kids say. We want school to feel like this, where nobody's yelling at anybody. Now, as a principal, I was a yeller. You better get out my hall. Everybody knows me. But in the summer with 2nd and 3rd graders, I'm this nice lady who just go to class. It's just, and I just think it translates into how our parents show up. Kids don't miss. They don't miss. They want to be there. It's a place they want to be. And I think how we treat adults oftentimes reflects how we view and we treat kids.
So Dan, lean forward. Yeah.
I think that kind of translates into building those relationships with each other as professionals, as adults, but also building relationships with the students. So once you get to know that student on a deeper level or a more personal level, they buy into what you're trying to do. So if I'm just up here just trying to educate, a lot of the students are not going to buy into that. But if I get to know that young person or that faculty, the staff member, somebody who I work with, if I really get to know them on a deeper level, what we are trying to do, the direction we're trying to go, it makes a deeper impact for the whole building, for the student, staff, parents, everything. Everybody buys in to the direction that you're trying to go. And so that's why I think relationships is just critical. It's number one, and then in teaching, the educational piece is number 2, at least in my opinion.
Oh, I've been going around the building saying just that. We're on the same page, Dan. And, I want to take this time to apologize to Louise, Troy, and Stivers. I said I was going to rock your shirts today. I forgot them. I left them at home. Sorry about the bad customer service.
At Westwood, we had a motto for our customer service, and it was really, it was something that we lived and breathed. It was not our intent to satisfy our customer, but to impress them. And so to leave an impression upon people and give people an experience when we encountered them. And we knew that if we didn't get feedback that said we were impressed, we had more work to do. So I think that's important to make sure that you have some guide to go by.
Right, how are people experiencing our spaces, whether it be our classroom, our building, our office, our school, our district, how are they experiencing it?
I like that. And thank you, Akeisha, for setting the tone for other departments to think about what's the impression people have when they call us. So challenging our central office with all we do is provide internal customer service for the most part, and how are we viewed, and how could we challenge ourselves to make sure that they're not scared to call certain departments, that they don't feel like nobody ever answers that phone. So we want to let this be a conversation throughout the district, that we truly support the 5 C's, and we're committed to making sure the culture is healthy. So no one can say, oh, that department never does this, or you can't, that person, Lisa puts her phone on voicemail and leaves it there all day. We don't want people to say that.
Or we never see her.
Right. She's never there. So we want to make sure we send that. So it's just a challenge to all of us, especially those of us, as we've said over and over, our role is to support the buildings and make sure that they get what they need.
One of the things that I really, really struggle with, and I learned in another district, was that they had a saying that everyone should be treated like they're the superintendent. Everyone should be treated like they're the superintendent. And here's why I said that. When I'm out in buildings, I will call Ludlow 2 from a building on purpose because it's not my phone. Yeah. And you're right. I get voicemail, no pickup, and it's on a regular basis. And I do that strategically because I know if I call from the office phone up here, somebody's going to pick up. And that's a really ugly reality about how we tier our support in this organization based on what your title is. That has got to go away.
Which is, I think, why that relationship building is so important. As someone who's been able to work in central office and work in the buildings, I've had the opportunity to build relationships with people in various departments. And so when you do call, they remember your name. But something as simple as remembering a kid's name, remembering a parent's name, is so powerful for customer service because it makes them feel like they matter to you enough for you to commit to knowing who they are, just with the start of their name. And then, building the relationship further with other information of, what's your background? What's your history? What other schools have you been to? When we're in the hallways, and I know Daniel probably feels the same way, when that kid feels like you know them, there's nothing like it. And when you make that phone call to the parent and you have information about their child that you wouldn't know unless you've had a conversation, that conversation is probably one of the most powerful conversations that you'll have all year with that parent about that student. And so relationships are so key, and doing just those little things to show people that they matter. And it's huge.
So as we close it out, I'm going to ask you to is there one thing, there's never one thing, but there will be 8 today because we'll each have one thing that you could say that you'd want the organization to hear? Because some people will take this and they'll process it and say, yeah, this is self-reflective, it's me. And then you all know how it works. There'll be some people say, they're not talking to me. But we are. We are. And so for me, that one thing is, I walked into a building the other day and said, hey, how are you? And the individual said to me, hey, I'm just working on this busing thing. And I repeated it again. I said, hey, how are you? And they finally got it and said, oh, I'm good. Like for me, it's just the salutation of saying hello and being authentic and responding. So that's my one thing for the district.
I would say my one thing is just going back, building those relationships with the students, with the families, with the staff, and making it not just a place of work, but almost like a family, a complete family.
I have a lot of things.
Your list.
A lot of things. I'm going to say 2 things.
Okay, go right ahead.
One is I think that internal customer service is dependent upon competence. And I would be the first to acknowledge that we have some systems within our district that are not working. And one way that you show employees respect is by not wasting their time, by being efficient, by giving them answers. And we've got a lot of repairing to do in a lot of departments and a lot of places. That's one thing. The second thing is our school buildings' front offices. When you walk into a school building, whether you're a kid or a parent or a community person, that is a place of business. There shouldn't be people hanging out. There shouldn't be food containers and, meals all over the counter and junk everywhere. That it should feel like you're walking into your doctor's office. Not so sterile that there's not a personality and some warmth, but it is a place of business. And as I have said to the principals before, if your office is a mess, people are going to think you're a mess. So that is a reflection of how your building operates if we're talking about efficiency and systems. So just be mindful of that is the first impression. Actually, the first impression starts on the sidewalk before they come in the doors. But how people behave, how people present themselves, how the office looks is really, really important.
That was good, Aaron. I'm only going to do one.
But you had some more.
Like yesterday.
You had some more, right?
Yeah, I got my feel yesterday. I would just say we can start by being kind, because you never know the effect that you have on people. I was in Ponitz today. Just thinking about it blows my mind how many kids were like, hey, Miss Sheehy, hey, and hugging and loving, right? Being kind. You never know what type of impression you're leaving on someone or what someone is going through when you encounter them. So just start by being kind. It goes a long way.
I know we talked about the external. I've talked about the external. We've talked about adults. But all of us exist because of kids. And how our kids experience, again, I cannot say this enough, our schools, our classrooms, our cafeterias is mission one, critical one. I think about that time, I don't know if it was Obama or Arnie Duncan who was coming to town.
It was Obama. And he was going to come to Stivers and or Thurgood. They didn't know.
True story. Shrubs, flowers, all this stuff, because this important person from D.C. was coming to Dayton Public Schools. And then I was with Dr. Lawrence, who was David at that time. I mean, still David, but I was hot. I was furious because we don't do that for kids. We're going to do this for someone else based on how they're going to look at us. And he didn't come. So we did get our lawn mowed at that time. This is many years ago. Our lawn was mowed, but there were things planted and all this special because somebody was coming to town versus our babies who need to see manicured lawns, clean floors, beautiful spaces. That we're here for kids.
Jimmy Keaton and Rob Hunter are currently in grounds and facilities. All summer long. They tried to make every building look like Obama was coming.
Yes.
And Sharon, you were absolutely right. You were blistering mad.
Was hot.
Because I had called a few weeks earlier and said, come on out and cut the grass. Nothing. Come on out and cut, because I was conscious of that as a principal. I wanted to look good for the kids. But when we got that last minute memo that it could be, the Secret Service does that too. They give you 2 sites to throw people off. And the Thurgood was the one and Stivers was the other. I thought they did just because I was an assistant at Stivers and the principal at Thurgood. I thought that was a reason.
I want to say one thing. I'm sorry, because you mentioned that. I know when I was the principal at Westwood, I would make sure to get there early to make sure there was no trash in the yard when the families came. And when I went to Wagaman this week, I can't remember what day it was, the morning custodian was out early making sure that there was no trash. And I just gave her a big hug because that matter
Our
to
babies
her.
matter.
Yes.
How they experience that school.
Yes, and the parents and the community coming up, it matters.
It matters.
Yeah.
I would say show up. Show up, and I'm kind of be like Chief Dooley a little bit, and commit. Because it's one thing to just be physically present, but present in the moment and engaged is a totally different thing. So show up and commit to what you're doing and commit to our constituents, our children.
I like it. I like it.
And I would say that take ownership. Take ownership when a concern comes to you, and everyone matters. Every call matters. Every visit matters. Every request matters. Every position is valued. And it's so important that we remember that and have empathy for what people are going through.
Well, that concludes the second segment of our DPS Next Level podcast, customer service, internal and external. We look forward to doing the next one next week. We haven't quite thought about what that's going to be yet. Who knows? Take care.